Hello there, everyone. If you're watching this video, then you are part of the TTOR Army, an army that is building itself up one subscriber at a time. Now, before we get into the topic of today's video, I'd like to give you a brief announcement, make you aware of two things that are very important. Now, YouTube censorship has been going on for at least 7 to 8 years, if not longer, and YouTube alternatives have never been more important than they are now. So, I'd like to bring two particular alternatives to YouTube to your attention. The first one, of course, is Rumble, which you can see right here on the screen. Rumble is a YouTube alternative that is owned by the media company that Donald Trump runs. So this is essentially Evil Orange Man's YouTube alternative. A lot of people are using Rumble. We're talking to the tune of a couple 100 million site visitors a month for many months in a row now. There's a lot of traffic to be had. You can really get a lot of views on your videos on Rumble, and you can even build up a subscriber base. I'm at 74 subs currently on Rumble, as you can see here on the screen. And if you'd like to help me reach my 100 subscriber goal on Rumble, I would encourage you to subscribe to my Rumble channel today. Watch my videos on Rumble. And Rumble is also one of two websites that I exclusively live stream to. So if you want to see the live streams on Rumble that you'll never see on YouTube, well then you should also sub to my Rumble channel and check out my live streams over here. The other site that I live stream to is Quarter, which is an open source alt tech alternative that I myself personally founded and have been running for the past year and a half. It's very similar to YouTube in terms of features and functionality, but the freedom of speech on Quarter is even greater than it is on Rumble because I'm the one running Quarter. I'm a content creator myself, like a lot of you who will watch this video. And so I understand how important it is for creators like ourselves to have real freedom of speech, which is why I made Quarter, with real freedom of speech being the guiding principle of the content moderation. Basically, as long as you're not a terrorist group and as long as you're not showing or making us listen to pornography in your videos, you can pretty much say and do whatever you want here on Quarter. So if you want a feature-rich alternative to YouTube that champions real freedom of speech in a way that even Rumble can't, you should definitely use Quarter today. Now that you are aware of the existence of both Rumble and Quarter, let's talk about the subject of today's video, which is actually a video response to none other than Brett Keane. Brett Keane, almost a month ago, put out a video titled, "Donald Trump and Conservatives Will Fail Because Republicans Are Retarded." Now, the title is definitely a little provocative, but after having watched the video myself, his points are completely reasonable, and basically I just wanted to add my 10 cents to the equation. One of the points that Brett Keane brought up in this video is that a lot of conservatives and Trump supporters seem to think that if they're a lot more active on social media like the far left is, that their preferred candidates in the political arena will win the 2024 elections. Of course, we know from real-world experience that this is not true, especially if the integrity of the previous election in 2020 was under question, to say the least. As far as I know, nothing has been done in the real world as far as laws or procedures or technology changes to ensure that the 2024 elections will be much more secure and much more free of cheating than the previous election was. So if that doesn't happen, then frankly it doesn't matter how active conservatives and Trump supporters get on the internet. That's not going to stop the Democrats and the left and the globalists from cheating in future elections. As I pointed out to Brett Keane in the comments section, the best case scenario when it comes to being active on social media for Christians, conservatives, and Trump supporters is that they can make other people more aware of who the political candidates are and what their positions really are, and expose the propaganda against their candidates that are put out there in the world. That's the best case scenario for heavy social media use for Christians, conservatives, and Trump supporters during election seasons. Worst case scenario, they're just shouting to the void and not making a difference in real world elections. Another thing I would like to point out about conservatives and Trump supporters and Christians in general is that they are too easily swayed by lying grifters who have these shiny looking social media sites, and they promise them free speech, and because they like the shiny and they like what they're being told by these grifters, they will flock to the grifter sites. And even though Rumble as a product is pretty good, and even though it has an audience the size of which we've never seen in the alt-tech world before, unfortunately, Rumble is not the free speech website that it advertises itself as. Especially if you've been following Rumble and their CEO's X feeds in the last couple of months, you see Rumble's CEO talking about how free speech is winning in society because you got people like Alex Jones being allowed back on X, or you got Tucker Carlson and his new news network being on Rumble. Well, that's all well and good, but when you actually go to Rumble's terms and conditions, you see that they're not a free speech site, especially when you go down to the section that is called Rumble Content Policies. In Content Policy number 6, Rumble says that under no circumstances shall the following be submitted to the Rumble service. And number 6 says, content or material that is grossly offensive to the online community, including but not limited to racism, anti-Semitism, and hatred. So Rumble has a hate speech policy, which is literally the antithesis of freedom of speech. And not only is it a hate speech policy, it's also a racism policy, and it's also a policy regarding bigotry against Jews. Basically, not only is hate speech, quote unquote, not allowed on Rumble, which is already a very subjective term that can be twisted to mean anything you want, but they don't allow you to be racist on Rumble, which that's also a term that can be twisted to mean just about anything you want these days. And more specifically, you're not allowed to be bigoted against Jews. I'm sorry, but bigotry against anybody, including Jews, is protected under the First Amendment of the United States of America. And since Rumble is based in America, since they're in Florida instead of in Canada like they used to be, since they're an American social media website run by an American media company that is owned by Orange Man himself, they have no business having a hate speech policy on their terms of service. They have no business having a racism policy in their terms of service, and they certainly do not have any business having a bigotry against Jews policy on their terms of service, because it goes completely against the First Amendment and what the First Amendment protections allow. I especially think it's very important that people who are bigoted against Jews, especially in this day and age, they should be allowed to speak, because then we can see them for what they really are, and we can respond accordingly to them. If they're not allowed to talk, then they can do pretty much whatever they want as far as bad actions go, or planning to do illegal things goes, and we'll be none the wiser because we won't hear them speaking. You see, allowing them to talk is a win-win for everyone, even if we disagree with them and we don't like them, or we don't want them to commit crimes against Jewish people. It's very important that people who are bigoted against Jews or bigoted against other people groups be allowed to speak and say what they really think. It's very important to having civil discourse and for just keeping tabs on what your enemies are doing. On the flip side, you go to my video site, Quarter, and you go to the sidebar, and you go down to the terms and conditions, or the terms of service page as I call it, and you'll see that the terms of service is very different than Rumble. It says user contributions must not, and then the first paragraph says be unlawful or be made in furtherance of any unlawful purpose. User contributions must not aid, abet, assist, counsel, procure, or solicit the commission of, nor constitute an attempt or part of a conspiracy to commit any unlawful act. For avoidance of doubt, speech which is merely offensive or the expression of an offensive or controversial idea or opinion, as a general rule, will be in poor taste but is not illegal in the United States according to the Supreme Court of the United States. So on Quarter, anything that is legally protected by the First Amendment of the United States of America is allowed to be expressed on Quarter. That includes bigotry against Jews, bigotry against black people, bigotry against Asians, basically bigotry against any people group you want is allowed on Quarter. Why? Because Quarter is based in the United States of America, and the First Amendment of the United States of America's Constitution protects all offensive speech. And since more and more people are online and using the internet and spending less time conversing in the real world, it's more important than ever that our internet have the same freedom of expression that the real world has. Now, Quarter has better features and functionality than Rumble has in terms of all the features and functionality and things you can do on Quarter. And as we can see from my terms of service versus Rumble's terms of service, my website literally has more freedom of speech than Rumble allows. And yet, when you look at the analytics, Rumble has hundreds of millions of people using their site, while my site, Quarter, only has 120 registered users, and almost nobody, compared to Rumble, uses it. So, why is that the case? It's because I don't got much money to my name, and I'm not a lying grifter who says what you want to hear in order to get you to use my site. And I don't have this incredible online marketing campaign, and I don't have a big following on the internet, so I don't reach a lot of people. That's why a site like mine, which is technically superior to Rumble and has more free speech allowances than Rumble does, has almost nobody using it, but you see almost everyone and their grandmother in the conservative Donald Trump supporting part of the internet using Rumble. It's because the people running Rumble have a shiny looking website and they say all the things that these content creators want to hear. And what these content creators do is when they see what they like, which is the shiny looking website, and they hear what they want to hear coming from Rumble's management, and they see that they can get big numbers in terms of views and subscriber counts on Rumble, well, then they're going to flock to Rumble every time. Whereas I got none of that going on at Quarter. I don't have a lot of people using it. And my website's not that ugly to look at, but I don't say what people want to hear. So naturally, it's going to be a lot harder for Quarter to grow than it is for a site like Rumble. And that's because conservatives and Donald Trump supporters are just as vulnerable to propaganda as anybody in the woke far left, or the Democrat side of the aisle. Well, folks, that's all I have to say in this video. Hopefully you enjoyed watching it, and if you did, be sure to hit that subscribe button and check out my other videos. Leave your likes and comments down below, and I will see you in the next video.